Somehow, a town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no fault lines, no fracking, no loud music even, is shaking on a daily basis.
Under the dining table now! Hey, remember that one summer we died under a table?
I found this in my living room.
Whoa, killer replica.
A replica of what?
A ghost trap? There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. New York in the 80s? It's like The Walking Dead. Your dad never mentioned this to you?
It's just my mom. My grandfather died. My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life.
Aloha! This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. And, well, it's a little rainy today, but last night, the weekend, before Thanksgiving, was fabulous. And it was fabulous because I saw a new movie, the new movie that came out this weekend, making $60 million at the box office worldwide, 44 million domestic for the pre-Thanksgiving weekend. Surely it's going to make more over the holiday weekend coming up later this week for Thanksgiving, and that is for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, this stars Paul Rudd, Finn Wolfhard, Connie Coon, and McKenna Grace. McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard are the grandchildren of Egon Spengler in this movie. Harold Ramis from the original Ghostbusters, who had passed away. And they inherit his farm out in the middle of, the Midwest, where apparently he had had a falling out long ago with the rest of the Ghostbusters, which all actually happened in this world back in in the 1980s. So they come to this town following his death, kind of inheriting his farm, and pick up on the mysteries that led to his death, essentially. But without further ado, remember our rating scale. Shock a thumbs up. It's good to see. I recommend it. Shock a thumbs down. It's junk. I don't recommend it. And for Ghostbusters Afterlife, it is a serious, strong shock a thumbs up. I tell you, I had a lot of fun with this movie. The audience had a lot of fun with this movie. There is a lot to like in this movie. A lot of nostalgia for old fans of the original Ghostbusters in 1984, and for new fans just coming into the Ghostbuster franchise. And let me tell you, it does not reference at all the 2016 all-female Ghostbuster team that, unfortunately did atrocious at the box office and was met with public rebuke. I think mainly, I didn't see that movie, but I feel that mainly because it ignored, the premise and the basis of, the original Ghostbusters, which again, should have been incorporated into the film. And that is why this Ghostbuster movie for 2021, which was actually in the can a couple of years back, was much, much more well accepted, because it did fit into the mythology that was presented in the 80s. Being the children or the grandchildren of the original, one of the original members of the Ghostbusters, and following in their grandfather's footsteps. Without too much spoilers, there is even an appearance of Harold Ramis in this movie. Beat for beat, this movie opens with action, maintains that action well into the middle of the film, where it gets slowed down a little bit by some exposition, but with some comedy tidbits thrown in there, you are still very entertained until the final third act, which surprisingly, shows, as you've seen from the, from the cast listing, a reuniting of the original Ghostbusters, Dan Aykroyd, Jim, Bill Murray, and Ray. And the other person, Ray. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. I had his name in my mind there for a little bit. And of course, through digital effects, Harold Ramis, since unfortunately he had passed away, many years ago. Overall, this story, it's a new telling, but it is also an old telling. It is directly related, kind of a sequel to the 1984 Ghostbusters. So before seeing it, I would recommend. A friend of mine and his son had watched the original Ghostbusters 1 and 2 before seeing this movie, and that helped him immensely, especially his son. I would say at least watch the 1984 Ghostbusters. It really doesn't reference too much other than the Ghostbusters were still around for part 2 before this apparent falling out. And on part 1, they're still riding high on this success. And pretty much this current film references the 1984 first Ghostbuster movie, in so much that the main villain is returning and comes back, not only to get its revenge on Harold Ramis, but also, Egon Spengler, but also to finish what it started in that original movie. Let me just say that it does warm the heartstrings immensely. All right, I'll go into a little bit of spoilers. All 4 Ghostbusters from the original cast return for, a few moments at the end of this movie. They do make an appearance, and they are all on film together. And you get a little bit that old 1980s Ford banter that made the film so successful, back then. There was a little bit of sadness in my heart. Maybe the only flaw that I would say in this movie is that in seeing that moment where they are together, we missed out on so much greatness prior to, this movie, this new movie in 2021, simply because of Bill Murray's feud with Harold Ramis that drove them apart and stopped a third, original Ghostbuster trilogy from taking place all those years ago. There is an apology in this film by Dan Aykroyd to Harold Ramis's character in it, which I felt, honestly should have come. It would have felt more hard-earned and would have been more impactful if those words had been spoken by Murray, saying to Harold Ramis's CGI ghost character, I'm sorry, that I think would have been more heartfelt, because, there had been some interviews, some reports that, before Harold Ramis died, Bill Murray did bury the hatchet with him, before he died and passed away, and basically apologized to him. I think as fans of the original Ghostbuster series, as a fan of Bill Murray and Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd, I think the fans deserve to hear that from Murray, and that if that would have been on film, that at least he would have symbolized it to Harold Ramis's, ghost form, then, it would have been embraced a little bit more by fans than, a pretend conflict between him, you know, Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd, or Egon Spengler, and oh gosh, I can't even remember his name. Dan Aykroyd's character, who seemed to have had a bit of a tiff in the movie. Whereas, you know, obviously, John Wrightman, perhaps insisted upon by his father, Ivan Wrightman, who had directed the original, and his son John directed this movie, you know, wanted that to be vocalized as kind of a bridge to, you know, forgive, you know, to have the fans the chance to see these characters forgive one another and move on with the franchise, to settle this old bad blood. Those are my thoughts on it. And perhaps Bill Murray said no. Well, obviously he must have said no. And thus those lines went to Dan Aykroyd's character, which, although is heartfelt at the time of the movie, just would have been more impactful, more truthful, more honest in the real world had they been spoken by Bill Murray, as I suspect John Wrightman had wanted them to be. But as we all know, Bill Murray is his own man, and he does what he wants to do. Much to the detriment of, you know, the Ghostbuster franchise, and other movies, aka Charlie's Angels. So, you know, this is nothing new. But still, you know, with those reports of an actual apology that Bill had made to Harold before his death, it would have been nice to have heard his character, ask for forgiveness from, you know, the Harold Ramis character in this movie, instead of having it surrogated to Dan Aykroyd's character. That's a little nitpick on my part. Maybe hardcore, true Ghostbusters fans will feel the same with me. Leave your comments down below if you think that was, you know, it's not a big issue in the movie, but it's just one little point where they could have poked that, poked that and put it to rest. Poke that bear and put that bear to rest, you know, to kind of bring any ill will still with these guys to bed, basically. But other than that, you know, the new stars of this franchise, along with the old stars, you know, the passing of the torch is done wonderfully, and it is definitely something that is well worth watching, especially over this long holiday weekend coming up. If you haven't seen it, it's not streaming anywhere yet. In a month or so, it should be on video on demand, streaming on demand, over in red boxes, wherever, for rental. But, you know, you really should see this movie in the theaters where it was meant to be seen, because it is quite a spectacle and a true homage to the very, very first Ghostbusters. You know, well done to John Wrightman, director, son of the original director of Ghostbusters, who nails this movie in both the tone and the feel of it. I'm not going to lie, you know, seeing Finn Wolfhard in there made me so, it's like, man, I wish this was Stranger Things, you know, I want the movie Stranger Things coming up. Which next year sometime, I think February maybe, 2022, we'll get the, the fourth installment season on Netflix of Stranger Things. But, you know, there are tones of this movie, there are parts of this movie that could easily have fit into Stranger Things. I mean, they did dress up as, you know, the Stranger Things kids did dress up as Ghostbusters in season 2 of Stranger Things. So to see Finn Wolfhard become a Ghostbuster in this was like, you know, nostalgia on top of nostalgia on top of nostalgia. since, those guys, since Stranger Things is all set in the 80s anyways. Oh my God. So I was just loving this movie so much. I didn't see the all-female movie Ghostbusters. I'm not interested in those women as comedians overall. So I was not interested in that movie. And again, since it was a reimagining, a new, basically a new remake, not even acknowledging the things of the past. Those women could have been franchise owners in the Ghostbusters Corporation or something. Something that the role-playing game, yes, there was a Ghostbusters role-playing game that you could all over America, you could assemble a team of your own and become Ghostbusters and fight ghosts in your cities, wherever. So, basically that's kind of what we're getting in this movie, a different location, far from the metropolis city of New York, but still connected to New York. As I won't spoil it, it is kind of dropped in the movie, little Easter eggs. How this town, this small Midwest town, is important to the events that took place in 1984 in New York. But yes, that role-playing game, even the animated cartoon of the real Ghostbusters that took place following the success of the movies 1 and 2 that ran, after school. Was a fabulous success, which showed the original team, which showed potential for other, teams across America. This is basically that extension of the idea, but still passing the torch down to relatives of the original team. Egon Spengler, Harold Ramis's grandchildren, played by Finn Wolfhard, and McKenna Grace, along with their school friends, all of which, seem to want to become this new diverse cast of Ghostbusters, very much like the original team. And it is set up for a sequel or even a series. It could go either way. Hopefully sequel. I could see, there could be television shows of the Ghostbusters, Netflix shows, Amazon shows, etc. With, again, like I said, other franchise members. But I'm just rambling now because I want to see more. I look forward to the sequel. Strong shock and thumbs up for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Seeing this movie, you will not be disappointed if you're a fan or a newcomer to the Ghostbusters. All right, thank you so much. This is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man, giving Ghostbusters Afterlife a strong shock and thumbs up. Go see it. I'm going to see it again. That's about it. All right, thank you so much, and aloha.